I was concerned that you would feel insulted.
Why would I feel insulted?
Because you felt threatened.
Well, now I am insulted.
Welcome to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 3, The Streets of Mos Espa. The episode begins with a shot of this weird spider robot with a globe attached to it. This is actually a Bomar monk. They were the original inhabitants of Jabba's palace, and you can see one here in Return of the Jedi. Basically, these monks would detach their brains from their bodies and keep them in these jars. Being removed from their physical forms would give them a higher form of enlightenment. In fact, JRLJR on Twitter pointed out that the monks becoming machines is paralleling the Mod Street Gang taking on droid parts. But there is a deeper theme at play here. Jabba's palace was originally a Bomar monastery that he invaded and took over. So he was kind of like a parasite living inside their home. Just like he was replaced by Bib Fortuna, who was replaced by Boba Fett, who is now being replaced by the Pikes. But throughout all of this, the Bomar monks remained, praying inside their giant robot spiders. A deeper theme here might be that the Bomar monks, by detaching themselves from physical desires like money and food, have in a way made themselves immortal, while the power-hungry people like Jabba and Boba Fett will simply continue to devour one another. By the way, I apologize if I repeat a few Easter eggs from previous episodes, but I never know who's watching for the first time. Boba's Major Dromo is the droid 8D8, who we saw torturing a Gonk droid in Return of the Jedi. And he's voiced by the immortal Matt Berry.
Look, Rick, we all know you've had a coach class trip to hell and back with your dead son, but you've got to get over it. That thing's dangerous.
The droid says,
After the sail barge disaster,
and the channel heavy spoilers pointed out that it's interesting that this is the official word on this disaster, that it's not common knowledge that the rebels blew up Jabba's yacht and strangled him to death. The Hutts probably kept the word of that from getting out, because it would have been an embarrassment to their organization. And, as we see later, the Hutt's power has been greatly diminished in the galaxy. He tells Boba the history of Mos Espa's criminal factions, which really seems like day one information, but droids are always withholding key information from their masters. Like R2-D2 never said to Luke, "Hey, I knew your dad. We were like best friends during the war." He name checks 3 species, saying the Trandoshans rule the city center, where we've seen them hanging out before, the Aqualish took the workers district, and we see a group of them around a burn barrel in the workers district here, and the Klatooinians. And I'm wondering if this is the same gang of Klatooinians who tried to capture Grogu in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. After all, both episodes took place on Tatooine. 8D8 goes on to say that Bib Fortuna was able to hold onto power by not holding power. He was just a figurehead who wanted the benefits of being in charge with none of the responsibilities.
So Bib Fortuna was the James Buchanan of Star Wars?
Yes, Doug, that's right. Bib Fortuna is the James Buchanan of Star Wars.
I thought he was more of a Martin Van Buren, but whatever.
Okay. This episode is loaded with great character actors, like the incredible Stephen Root playing Lorth Peel.
Well, with apologies, no one respects you.
Man, this guy's great.
I could set the building on fire.
Boba Fett says,
I grew up surrounded by water.
and is it me, or has he just been looking for a way to organically bring up Kamino in conversation? Oh, we're in a desert. You're thirsty? I grew up around water. Then Jimmy James says,
Tatooine was once completely covered with water.
Now this is a cool bit of lore from the old expanded universe that the Tuskens actually mentioned last episode. Basically, back in the day, Tatooine was a lush world that was enslaved by these people called the Raycon. The people of Tatooine rebelled, and the Raycon responded by bombarding the planet so hard that it destroyed their ecosystem. I'm starting to think that there's a reason why this story keeps coming up. Maybe Boba and the Pikes will be faced with a similar situation, where Boba Fett will have to stop the Pikes from destroying Tatooine in retaliation for his winning the war. You know, when I make an Easter egg video, I don't just Google character names. I really do my research. I listen to as many Star Wars audiobooks as possible. In fact, this year, I wanted to challenge myself to finishing every Star Wars audiobook in the new canon. And I'm doing this with my Raycon earbuds. They're the sponsor of this video. These earbuds are so comfortable, it feels like I'm not even wearing an earbud. That's because they have this rubber oil look and feel, which makes them feel very natural. They're also practically invisible and don't stick out at the sides. They have optimized gel tips, and I'm telling you, these things will not budge. Look, I'll do the Boss Nass shake. Like this. Yeah, it's still in. These everyday earbuds have a built-in microphone and a 32-hour battery life, good for 8 hours of continuous playtime. Plus, they're noise isolating, so you can really focus on whatever ScreenCrush video you're watching. Raycon earbuds also start at half the price of other premium audio brands, and they come in 5 different colors. They make a great gift for others or for yourself. Hey, because it's a new year, treat yourself. So if you're interested, go to buyraycon.com/ScreenCrush and get 15% off your order, or click the link in the description. And if you find out they're not right for you, they have a 45-day return policy. Back to the Easter eggs. Lorth Peel, no relation, asked him to fight off a band of street youths that robbed him.
They are half man, half machine.
He's more machine now than man.
So Boba decides to actually learn about the city that he now rules. On the street we see some Jawas and the homeless Aqualish that I mentioned before, and then we see my new favorite characters in the show, the cyberpunk street gang with 80s Dayglow bikes. Josh Millman on Twitter points out that they seem to resemble the mods with a little cyberpunk influence from 1960s England. At least one has a British accent, another with a long jacket, and their speeder bikes look like the GS scooters with all their mirrors. I loved how the leader had this 80s hairdo, in keeping with the time period Return of the Jedi was made, since everyone in Star Wars always seems to have contemporary haircuts, kind of like Pelly's Dana Barrett perm in The Mandalorian. And speaking of Pelly, we catch a glimpse of her here with her pit droids. Thanks James McClintock on Twitter for that observation. Boba calls her
Dank.
which is part of the curse word Dank Ferric, which we hear a lot in The Mandalorian.
Dank Ferric.
Dank Ferric.
Dank Ferric.
And this guy's droid eye seems like the one we saw a Nemoidian crew member wear in The Phantom Menace.
They've gone up the ventilation shaft.
I really liked how Boba handled this situation. Instead of just trusting the merchant class, he inquired, he learned new information, he gave jobs to the jobless, created a fair pricing index, and proved that he was a man of the people. Vote Boba in 2022. Boba says,
Rest of you gather up your gack, follow me.
and get this, according to Lucasfilm Creative Arts Manager Phil Sostak, gack was a common word used among the crew members of Star Wars. It referenced any random bunch of tech, like the banding around the Millennium Falcon. Super cool. Boba tells Stephen Root to go work in Mos Eisley, which seems like a non-starter for him, because as we saw in The Mandalorian, Jabba's demise has turned Mos Eisley into a sleepy, peaceful town. The frog creature outside the palace is a bubo, repeating this same burping gag from Return of the Jedi. Will Watkins on Twitter points out that we see a bird eat a womp rat, and then the bubo eats the bird. This is a sly nod to Boba Fett devouring the territory of the Hutts, and the Pikes devouring the territory of Boba Fett.
There's always a bigger fish.
Boba recuperates in a tank of Bacta, the healing liquid that we've seen both Luke and Darth Vader bathe in from the films. And the sound his tank makes is the same sound we heard when Han was defrosted from carbonite, making me think this is because these are both machinery that are available with the technology that's in Jabba's palace. I love when Boba is in Bacta in these episodes because the flashbacks are my favorite part of the series. He dreams of himself as a young boy watching Slave One take off from Kamino. Judging from his age, I'm wondering if this is actually when his dad left for Krrsantan in Attack of the Clones. He rides into Mos Eisley searching for the Pikes. We see stormtrooper helmets on Pikes like we first saw in Season 1 of The Mandalorian, and this was actually inspired by Apocalypse Now.
It's like Apocalypse Now. It adds a little menace.
I think the banthas in this show look pretty great. These things have come a long way since they were just elephants wearing a wig. Boba goes on to meet with the Pikes, who are shaping up to be the big bad villains of the series. Now in the Clone Wars animated show, the Pikes are known primarily for smuggling spice, like they do in this show. And they run the spice mines of Kessel, which we saw firsthand for the first time in Solo. Jake Jones on Twitter points out that the Pike symbol looks a little bit like Crimson Dawn. Now that's the evil crime syndicate that we saw in Solo. Now the last time we saw Crimson Dawn in the comics, they were being led by Kira. That's Emilia Clarke's character from the movie. Now the symbol on the Pike's tunic does not match the syndicate symbol that we've seen in the Clone Wars. So it is possible that their crest was adapted to look more like Crimson Dawn's, and it turns out Kira would be the real big bad of the show.
You and I will be working much more closely.
In this series, the lead Pike is voiced by the great Phil Lamar, the star of Mad TV and a voiceover actor who did several voices on the Clone Wars, including Jar Jar Binks, Bail Organa, Kit Fisto, and a ton of others.
Man, I don't even have an opinion.
He references the Pike homeworld of Obadiah, which we saw a few times in the Clone Wars. He tells Boba they've already paid tribute to the Kintan Striders. That's the Nikto biker gang that we saw in the last episode. So for a moment, it seems like the flashbacks in present day are going to tell similar stories about Boba taking down a local gang at the behest of another party. But then there's the Pepsi twist. He returns to the Tusken village to find it destroyed, paralleling Luke's return home in A New Hope, which of course was a reference to the Searchers. Except in the Searchers, it was a tribe of natives killing the settlers. Here, it's a tribe of settlers who have killed the natives. This is really sad, especially the dead banthas, but not for nothing, the Tuskens had it coming. They stole the gang's bikes and cut in on their territory.
All in the game, yo.
And there is another parallel to Luke Skywalker when he burns the bodies. And much like Luke, this burning signals a new beginning. Boba is going to reinvent himself as a leader of Tatooine, and Luke is going to go on to fail everyone he ever loved. Boba hesitates to burn a portion of the branch that he brought back from his vision quest, or at least he's contemplating the meaning of the branch and his path going forward. And then this. That black Krrsantan jump scare was awesome. It's actually the best part of him in the show. See, this Wookiee bounty hunter has appeared in the comics where he used to partner with Boba Fett. And when this fight started, I was so excited. It was like playing with your action figures. You guys remember when a giant Wookiee fought Boba Fett and some cyberpunks in Jabba's palace?
That was awesome.
But honestly, I thought the fight was kind of underwhelming. Everybody stood around waiting for their turn to attack, which is lazy fight choreography. Robert Rodriguez directed this episode, and he's one of the greatest action directors of all time. I don't know, it wasn't my favorite. Let me know your thoughts on the fight down in the comments. Black Krrsantan fights his way down to the throne room where he nibbles on a little bit of pork. Afterwards, Boba gives his Bacta tank to his guard, again, showing that he wants to rule with respect. They end the fight by dropping the Wookiee into the Rancor pit. Now, like I mentioned last week, they faithfully recreated this pit from Return of the Jedi, right down to the little gateway that Luke could not escape from. At the banquet, they're eating a creature called a Nuna, which are native to the planet Seleucami. We even saw one of these prepared exactly like this in the Bad Batch episode 2. And on the table, there is a bottle of Spotchka, the blue wine that we first saw in The Mandalorian.
Weak quake. 2 snorts of Spotchka.
And then the Hutt twins show up.
12 seconds later.
So they can say goodbye. That was a pretty fast conflict with the Hutts, wasn't it? I thought they were setting up this big, Boba Fett Hutt war, but like Qui-Gon says,
always a bigger fish.
Turns out the Hutts are actually more scared of the Pikes, which back in the day would have been unthinkable, but I guess Jabba's death diminished the Hutt council more than we realized. And they bring him a gift, a Rancor calf, similar to Muchi, one of Jabba's Rancors that we met in the Bad Batch. And the Rancor keeper is the great Danny Trejo, an actor who's worked on several films with Robert Rodriguez.
Machete.
The twins say, and in the comics, we see Black Krrsantan in the fighting pits having the time of his life. So, did this episode make anyone else feel really, really bad for Rancors?
Depressed. Rancor are emotionally complex creatures. They're quite peaceful and less threatened.
So this is dogfighting, but with big space monsters. It's really sad. Now I understand why Jabba's Rancor keeper Malakili was so sad when Patissa died. And this idea that the Rancors are peaceful and less threatened is also true of Muchi in the Bad Batch.
Oh, that's a good Rancor.
And maybe Boba Fett looks at this creature and sees something of himself. Someone who was bred and trained for fighting, but longs for peace. Danny Trejo says,
it is said that the witches of Dathomir even rode them through the forest and fens.
And this is also from the expanded universe, from the novel The Courtship of Princess Leia. And the Force Witches of Dathomir were also major characters in the Clone Wars series who should really show up in a live-action Star Wars. Boba says that he wants to ride it, saying,
I've ridden beasts 10 times its size.
Now, according to legend, the ancient Mandalorians rode the great mythosaurs when they first settled their home world. But I think this is more than likely a callback to Boba Fett's first appearance in the Star Wars Holiday Special. No, not that clip. This clip.
Settle down. All they do is eat.
That's more like it. And in the Bad Batch, a Rancor is ridden by Omega, an unaltered clone of Jango Fett, just like Boba Fett is an unaltered clone, making him and Omega brother and sister. Fett says,
feed the Rancor, a full Ronto carcass from the larder.
And that is this creature from the special edition of A New Hope. And if you want to try Ronto yourself, you can have it at Ronto's Roasters. That's one of the restaurants in the Galaxy's Edge theme park. Then they ride into town to speak to the mayor's Twi'lek Majordomo, played by the great character actor and improviser Dave Pasquesi. And when he gives them the slip, Fennec repeats the curse word,
Thanks, Ferric.
And then there's this high-speed chase, which Greg Alba on Twitter pointed out is like from Back to the Future. Yeah, Greg, we know. That's really obvious. Stop trying to do Easter egg things and stick to reacting to things. The chase through Mos Espa has a litany of Easter eggs. We see a protocol droid, which has on a restraining bolt. And we see an astromech droid pulling a wagon like we saw in Navarro in Episode 3 of The Mandalorian. Here is a pit droid, several mouse droids, and 2 Bith being carried in a rickshaw. Star Wars Pills on Twitter points out that they are being pulled by an ESPSA droid, the same model that carried Anakin and Padme around Mos Espa in Attack of the Clones. And they also drive straight through a painting of Jabba that is actually one of Ralph McQuarrie's original concept art designs for Jabba's palace. Them crashing through the painting seemed like a nod to one of the classic Hollywood car chase gags.
Well, their job is to walk back and forth with this big plate glass window every couple of minutes.
Thanks to Buckknife Sabrosa on Twitter for reminding me of that. Sebastian St. Amour on Twitter points out a mistake here, that you can see the wooden sets from the shoot. But that's actually not a set, that's where Gene's guy lives. He also pointed out that the theme song to the show is very similar to the Swedish film Ronja the Robber's Daughter. Since the composer of Boba Fett, Ludwig Göransson, is Swedish, this might be an intentional nod to his roots. I love the design of the speeder. It was like Luke's X-34, but with some boss 1950s fenders added to the front. The speeder crashes, Biff Tannen style, into a crate of Melu Run melons like we first saw in Star Wars Rebels.
One fresh Melu Run as ordered.
And I love that when the speeder doesn't start, it makes this sound, which is a recording of a biplane engine that sound designer Ben Burt used for the Millennium Falcon.
Watch this.
Watch what?
Then we go to the landing field where the Pikes are arriving in their shuttle. Now this fuzzy alien actually appeared in the last episode here, wearing a gold bikini much like Princess Leia's slave outfit. This is important to remember because that bikini was also worn originally by your mom. And here's a couple things I didn't mention last week. One, thanks to the channel Heavy Spoilers for pointing out the Cammy and Fixer Easter egg. I didn't mention your name before because I don't like you. Two, several of you pointed out to me that the creature that the Hutt uses as a hanky looks like a Hujib from this classic Star Wars audio book. Fire in the Dust on Twitter pointed out that there is a lot of water symbolism in this show. People fight over water, the Tuskens steal it, Boba Fett grew up around it. The question is, why the symbolism? Well, he points out that the Pikes are named for a real-world fish. They even look very aquatic. So this could be a reference to Tatooine being an ocean that was dried up. Their arrival, then, is pointing backwards to Tatooine's past, instead of forward to Tatooine's future as a desert. And Boba is also from Kamino in Ocean World, but now he's here. So will the Pikes pull him backwards emotionally? Now, I think you're onto something there, but also, water is a symbol of the unconscious. It's a primal hidden place, a place where we all came from. I mean, we're 75% water. In Boba's vision, he is consumed by the tree that's surrounded by water, just as he was consumed by the Sarlacc. So his goal of the series is to emerge free from his fears and his violent past, to rise above his unconscious mind. That's weird. Doorbell? We never have customers.
Hey person, I think something just arrived for you.
For me? Well, what could it be? Oh, look at this! It's our plaque for reaching 1 million subscribers. This could not have happened without the support from all of you. So thank you so much for subscribing. Be sure to keep subscribing. Leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts and Easter eggs down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if you are subscribing for the first time now, please be sure to ring that bell. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and thank you so much.